The date is Wednesday, January 25th, 1995, and we're going to start by looking at some of the transfers around this time. Andy Cole, going from Newcastle to Man United, is obviously the biggest one, £7 million, but he's on a 10-game goal drought. He's one of the most clinical finishers in English football at this point, but he hasn't scored for 10 games. Duncan Ferguson, Rangers to Everton, another big signing. Tony Yeboah, a new player there in English football. John Hartson, £2.5 million. And Keith Gillespie joined Newcastle as part of that Andy Cole deal. And Ian Dowie, who for some reason appears in every video I make recently, he joins Crystal Palace for £400,000. So 6 Premier League games take place on this day. We're really going to focus on 2. Aston Villa versus Tottenham and Crystal Palace versus Man United. But I will also go through scores from all the other games, but they're the main 2 we're going to look at. All games kick off at 7:45. And let's look at the table. So this is the season really where Blackburn emerged as serious title contenders. Obviously the first season they were, but they fell away around Christmas when Alan Shearer got injured on Boxing Day. The second season of the Premier League, 93-94, Blackburn were in the title mix, but they fell away towards the end. Man United won the title. This is the season. Shearer, Sutton up top. These are the peak days of the SAS, and they look like they're going to win the title. Man United 2 points behind, but they have just beaten Blackburn 1-0 3 days before this, with Eric Cantona scoring the only goal. So that is a psychological victory, if nothing else. Elsewhere in the top half here, I want to look at Tottenham, who have had a bit of a revival under Jerry Francis, taking over from Ozzy Ardiles a few months earlier. They're unbeaten now in 11 games. If we also look at the bottom half of the table, Leicester, I mean, we're not really going to focus much on Leicester here, but the bottom of the table, 15 points. The manager who left them earlier in the season, Brian Little, has joined Aston Villa, and he's got them in good form, so they were actually in really serious relegation trouble when Ron Atkinson was in charge. They're now unbeaten in 7 games, heading into the game against Tottenham. And Crystal Palace, in 18th place, they host Man United. Bear in mind, this is the season where 4 teams go down, because the Premier League's being restructured from a 22-team league to a 20-team league, so 4 teams are getting relegated here, and only 2 are going up, which means as things stand, Coventry in 19th would go down. So let's fast forward 12 hours to that evening's team news. So I said we would focus on this game, Crystal Palace versus Man United. Nigel Martyn is in goal for Crystal Palace. They also have Gareth Southgate in midfield here, not in defence, in midfield. And Ian Dowie is up top with Chris Armstrong. Man United appear to have Roy Keane in defence, but they do have a strong team here. This is Ryan Giggs on the right, Lee Sharp on the left. Eric Cantona is the main man still. He's in attack with Andy Cole, 10 games without a goal, Andy Cole. And then we also have Aston Villa versus Tottenham. So Mark Bosnich is the Aston Villa goalkeeper. Hugo Ehiog in defence. Steve Staunton is in there. Andy Townsend back from suspension in this game. And Dean Saunders really is one of the top players here, alongside Dwight York. And Tottenham, Ian Walker, the goalkeeper. Gary Mabbutt is in defence. Interestingly, this is just over a year after John Fashanu caught Mabbutt in the face with that flailing elbow. And Mabbutt even said at the time he ended up looking like John Merrick, the Elephant Man. And Fashanu plays for Villa at this point, but he's injured and doesn't play. So the talk heading into this was, oh, it's Fashanu versus Mabbutt again, but that didn't happen. So elsewhere, Sol Campbell is in midfield. So we've got Gareth Southgate in midfield for Crystal Palace, Sol Campbell in midfield for Tottenham, and Jurgen Klinsmann is Spurs' main man here. He is the top scorer by a mile. He's up top with Teddy Sheringham. So the games start and Dean Saunders puts Aston Villa 1-0 up against Tottenham, cutting inside from the left, scoring bottom right-hand corner with a good finish. But moments later, this happens. Breaking, Klinsmann knocked out. Tottenham striker Jurgen Klinsmann has been stretchered off after being caught in the head with a flying knee from Aston Villa goalkeeper Mark Bosnich. Klinsmann remained motionless on the pitch for 4 minutes while the Spurs medical team attended to him. Villa fans initially booed the German before it became clear he had been knocked unconscious. And this, by the way, is crazy to see. The fans are actually booing him. He's down, he cannot move, and then suddenly it's like, oh, we realise the seriousness of this now. And anyway, let's fast forward to half-time. Aston Villa are still 1-0 up. Collymore has scored for Nottingham Forest to put them 1-0 up against Chelsea. Rule Fox has scored for Newcastle, that's 1-0 against Wimbledon. And it's 1-1 between Norwich and Coventry. Dion Dublin scored there for Coventry. So that takes us to the second half. And just to go back to the vidiprinter, you can see the latest goal there was Rule Fox. But now we have a major incident, to say the least, because Eric Cantona has been sent off for Man United at Crystal Palace. It's still 0-0 in that game, but he's been battling away with Richard Shaw, the Palace defender, all game, and he's ended up kicking out with him. And the assistant referee on the touchline is waving his flag like a madman to alert the referee to this. The referee sends Eric Cantona off, and as he starts walking over to the side of the pitch, something happens that means we need to go to a breaking news story. Breaking: Cantona kicks fan. Manchester United forward Eric Cantona attacked a Crystal Palace supporter after being sent off. Cantona was leaving the pitch when he appeared to receive abuse from the fan. The Frenchman lost his temper, leapt over the ad boards and launched at the fan with an astonishing kung fu kick. He followed up with wild punches before kitman Norman Davis and goalkeeper Peter Schmeichel led him away. Back to the vidiprinter, to the most important news around these few minutes of the evening. Paul Kitson has scored for Newcastle to put them 2-0 up against Wimbledon, and that has been followed up with Stan Collymore getting his second for Nottingham Forest to make it 2-0 at Chelsea, and then David May scores his first goal for Man United to make it 1-0 at Crystal Palace, 10-man Man United, and in Norwich and now 2-1 up against Coventry. But we need to leave the vidiprinter again because we have a top story, and if you notice, top left, we're not in the 300s anymore, we're in the 100s, and by the way, a rocket has just gone off in Norway, but we don't care about that because this is the top story in the world. Cantona has kicked a fan. Kung Fu Cantona, Man United star kicks fan. Police involved. Police officers have gathered at the side of the pitch to take statements from Crystal Palace fans who witnessed Eric Cantona's Kung Fu kick. Manchester United currently lead Palace 1-0, but the biggest story revolves around the scenes at pitch side. It is all kicking off. It is literally kicking off here at Selhurst Park. But we have more goals to round up. So, back to the vidiprinter. Mark Robins, former Manchester United striker, former Norwich striker, has scored for Leicester, the bottom club, to put them 1-0 up at Man City. Coventry have now equalised at Norwich. Effen Okoku has pulled one back for Wimbledon at Newcastle. And Gareth Southgate, this young up-and-comer, Gareth Southgate, the Crystal Palace captain, playing in midfield, has equalised against Man United after a bit of a scramble around the penalty area. And that's how it finishes. So let's just have a quick roundup of all the results. Aston Villa beat Tottenham, who had to play most of the game without Jurgen Klinsmann. Stan Collymore, 2 goals there against Chelsea. Southgate got that equaliser. Cantona, we're going to come on to that in a second. There is a lot more to talk about with Eric Cantona. Mark Robins, that goal was enough to beat Man City. 2-1 victory for Newcastle against Wimbledon, and then it finished 2-2 between Norwich and Coventry. But now, let's go to the homepage. Let's go to the 302, the classic. Moment of madness. Football's shame. We need to go through some of these headlines. So I think, first of all, this might seem crazy because Cantona has just kicked a fan, but I'm just going to go to Jurgen Klinsmann because we just have to see what happened to him. So Klinsmann, injury latest. Tottenham manager Jerry Francis has provided an update on Jurgen Klinsmann after the striker's collision with Mark Bosnich. Jurgen's taken a bad knock, Francis said. He came around fairly quickly, his nose is very swollen and he's got a terrible headache. Okay, so with the greatest of respect to Klinsmann, back to the homepage, I say we go to... Let's go to the police one next. There could have been a riot, police. Eric Cantona and Paul Ince will be interviewed by police in the next 48 hours. I've never seen anything like it in my life, South Norwood Police Chief Superintendent Terry Collins said. There could have been a riot. Ince's role is unclear at this stage, but he appeared to be involved in a pitch-side melee after Cantona's kick. Okay, next let's go to 305, I think. Lineker. See what Lineker had to say. So there was an episode of Match of the Day this night, which is perfect timing. Cantona kick inexcusable. Lineker, who by the way is a pundit on this, he's not the presenter. Des Lynam's a presenter. England legend Gary Lineker expects Eric Cantona to receive a lengthy ban after his Selhurst Park kung fu kick. It's one of the most amazing things I've ever seen in a football match, Lineker said on Match of the Day. It doesn't matter how you're provoked by the crowd, whatever language they use to you, you've got to be above it. I think it's unbelievable and inexcusable. The media, of course, were all over this, and one of the comments from The Guardian was, yet again Old Trafford's season has been thrown into turmoil by the nitroglycerin in human form that is Eric Cantona. And The Independent, honestly, this is a very strange article in my opinion, they actually decided to take this and make it a men versus women thing and say men lash out and women are more emotional, but they're willing to talk to people about their problems, whereas men are more aggressive. So they say Eric Cantona's emotional outburst is a classic example of how men lash out. So, interesting reporting. And I say we just finish here with the table. And I'll go with the bottom half first, just so you can see Leicester, despite that victory, are still bottom of the table on 18 points. Crystal Palace would have been in the drop zone if it hadn't have been for that Gareth Southgate goal. Aston Villa are up to 13th after that victory over Tottenham. They're still only 4 points above the relegation zone. And then let's go to the top half. Tottenham still in 6th place after that defeat Arsenal. We haven't even talked about Arsenal, but they're in 11th place here under George Graham. And at the top, Blackburn's lead has been cut to just 1 point after that draw for Man United, but really, they are dropped points for Man United. They should really have gone top here. And now Blackburn, with 2 games in hand, look like title favourites. So there we have it. That was the story of football on Wednesday, the 25th of January 1995. If you enjoyed this video, you might also like the Premier League in the 1990s, the making of modern football. It's available now on Amazon and in the description, or you can click inside that television set for another classic football story.